let's talk about, or hopefully we can talk about Wonderland's War. So this has got to be probably when I saw that teaser poster for it. I mean, like your last name, like P. If it's like Moss, Gilmore, Eisner brother. Like this is like straight up legit, like straight up tease, like movie poster, like straight from Disney.
Right.
It seems like all right, just give me some sort of morsel about
Well,
Wonderland's
I mean,
War.
you'll never guess what James Hudson's former job used to be if you see his marketing posts, right? Like you would never
Right.
guess that that was a thing that he used to do professionally. He's so good at it. Like, um, so what I can say about Wonderland's War? Well, he's talked about it on a couple of his live streams, just on Druid City, or
Okay.
James does live streams on Facebook also. It's
Oh,
very
nice.
yeah.
Okay.
Um, so lately it's mostly been Tidal Blades, but yeah, he has done some where he's talked about Wonderland's War. So Wonderland's War is it's sort of a game of two halves
Mm-hmm.
that are connected. The first half is a worker placement game. So you're
Okay.
going around and you're sort of like gearing up for this war that is going to happen. Like this war is inevitable. Wonderland is a very different place than what you knew. Like all the same players are there, but
Sure.
alliances aren't exactly what they used to be.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but there are four factions. There is Alice and her rebellion. There is the Hatter's Tea Party. There is the Jabberwock and the sort of beasts of Wonderland. And then there's the Red
Mm-hmm.
Queen and obviously her card army. Um, and they're all gearing up for this war that's going to be happening. So you're going around in the first half and you have this worker placement, and when you go to places is very relevant. It's either going to give you more or less things depending on how many other people have already sort of, ravaged it.
Okay. Oh, sure. Right. So scouring mechanism, I suppose. Sure. Potentially.
Yeah, it's sort of like a surge, and then there's a break point, like more, nothing basically.
Right.
Like,
Okay.
uh, well, it's never nothing. It's always like a minimal. You get more, less.
So you have to pick and choose like what you want to decide to scour versus getting the secondaries or tertiary things eventually before it loses its intrinsic value or its
Right.
maximum value. Sure. All right.
So one of the main things, and the thing that I think I can probably talk the most about, is the Wonderlandians.
Okay.
So the denizens of Wonderland are really sort of not on anyone's side at the start of the game, and you sort of need to interact with them to sort of convince them that you are the side that they need to back during the war. So every time you go and interact with a Wonderlandian, you can either say, "Hey, I'm going to give you these resources and sort of gain influence with you, and also I get this ability when I do that," or
Mm-hmm.
you can say, "Hey, I'm going to do this negative interaction with you because I don't care if you're on my side."
Right.
So whoever takes a negative interaction with a Wonderlandian will end up like they can no longer influence that Wonderlandian. They have like stolen the White Rabbit's pocket watch, or they've pushed Humpty Dumpty off of the wall, or what have you. They've done a really jerk thing to this person, gotten a very big benefit from it, a very good action.
Yep. Okay. Got it.
But they can no longer interact with that Wonderlandian. And then whoever gets
Mm-hmm.
that Wonderlandian is the person with the most and who has influenced them the most at the end of the first half.
Got
So
it.
then they will take them and they'll actually be a character that they get to use in the second half of the game. So the second half of the game is an area control game. But the only thing is that your workers are not your soldiers. The
Okay.
people you have working for you are not the people who are going to fight your war. So what you need to do is you need to like train your soldiers and like convert your worker into soldiers. And the sooner you
Okay.
do this, the more soldiers that you get from it. So
Got
it's
it.
sort of like this weird looking glass thing where you get a conversion rate of like one worker equals like 6 soldiers.
Sure. Okay. Okay.
um, but then yeah, like I said, the sooner you do it, the more it's worth. So like the sooner you turn your workers into soldiers, the more you get out of it. But the less workers you have for the first half. So you're doing less things on
Right.
your turn, you know, during the first half to do more things, to have more soldiers for the second half. So the second half is
Mm-hmm.
the area control game, and in the area control, you are sort of taking all of the things that you've gathered in the first half and just sort of using them in the second half. So you're sort of trying to again try and get these resources that are only there on the second half and sort of take control of these different areas, which will give you points or give you the resources that you can use to sort of rally your troops and get them to
Mm-hmm.
be stronger or move farther or whatever it is that they need to do. And you're trying to take control of different areas because the more you take control of the same area, the less it's worth. The more you take control of
Right.
other areas, the more you spread out, the better. But the more you
Mm-hmm.
spread out, the more vulnerable you are.
Okay.
So I think that's about all I can say. That's a general overview.
You don't realize that like that was a good long like I think. I mean, I thought that was just like you're gonna be. It's like this two-faced thing. No, I think you did a really great job. I think in terms of giving me and the listeners a sense of what this is gonna be,
Mhm.
which sounds fantastic. Each I don't know if you can speak to this, but with each kind of faction, with Alice and the Jabberwockies, etc. How is it? Obviously, play is influenced by what you do in this first half. Do each of them kind of have like asymmetric ability in terms of like Alice can do this thing better than say the Jabberwockies, or does each kind of function the same in that you're basically kind of beginning the game deciding I'm going to play this route or that route, or is there like a uniqueness to each sort of like clan or war thing that you're kind of a part of? Can you speak to that at all?
There's definitely a bit of asymmetry, and
Mm-hmm.
it functions in both halves of the game. Um, so in the worker half, your worker like your faction like Alice, you'll have an Alice miniature that can do things in the worker half as well as the other
Mm-hmm.
workers. And there is sort of special abilities and different resources that they will get. And then in the war half, they're your general now. Like they're leading your armies and leading your
Yeah.
soldiers, so they have definite general abilities uh, that are special and not general.
Sure. 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 Um, and I don't know if this would be. I'm definitely getting, and maybe this has gone around the office or whatever, but I definitely get senses of Root. In that Root has definitely like four different factions. They play differently. Like
Mhm.
they move differently. They kind of score differently. So you kind of have like these four little mini games going around here. Would you say that, or can it be spoken to whether or not like that's a similar concept that you have going on with Wonderland's War, or are you looking at this being a bit more like this one? This Alice figure is unique in its own way, but kind of how the rest of the whole faction plays out is going to be similar to every player on the board.
Yeah, I think it's more based on the character that you have,
Yeah.
and the rest of the play is a little bit more standardized to what everyone is doing. But the second half, like it is a bit asymmetric in the way that like you're building your army and your forces and everything in the first half. So like
Mm-hmm.
the decisions that you make in the first half of the game will sort of decide how the second half of the game is going to play out for you. Like, are you going
Right.
to try and get more soldiers? Are you going to have more tricks up your sleeve than the other
Mm-hmm.
players and just be able to be more unpredictable? Or are you going to like try and get as many Wonderlandians onto your side as possible to use them to help you win in conflicts?
Sure. Um, so obviously there's a total of four designers coming on board of this game. Um, what would you say brings out the like what part of the design do you hope that shines the most, that shows like this is the Ian Moss part of the game, right? um what, like, how sometimes like Bruno Feduti has like the numbers 0 through 9, 1 through 10, and he kind of makes a game developed around that, almost like an auteur, like having like that part of his auteur,
Okay.
like that's that signifies who Bruno Fedudi is. Like,
Hmm.
how would you say, like, or maybe it's, I don't know if it's too early or if you have, or if you're still kind of finding that, but what makes an Ian Moss game an Ian Moss game? Or like what elements of it could we find in Wonderland's War? Kind of a loaded question, but I really want to maybe get a, I maybe want to get a sense of like when people play Wonderland's War, like what part of it is it? What part of it is Ian Moss? Or like when they play a Duelosaur game, like what part of that really makes it and punches it at home that like this unique aspect of it is this designer, if that makes sense.
Um, I think one of the things that I really like wedged into this game. I don't want to say wedged because it fit perfectly, but it was the way the Wonderlands interact and the effect that that has on the game.
Okay,
So
sure.
interacting with the Wonderlands in the second half of the game, there are events which will happen. And normally, they're just sort of things that'll just twist the game and be like, oh, well, now you can't do this, or now everyone gets this bonus. So, like, it throws a wrench into your plans. But every Wonderlandian that is in the game will add one of their event cards to that deck.
Hmm.
And if they come up, what happens is they do a positive thing. They either do a positive thing to the player who controls them, who influence them the most, or they'll do a negative thing for the person who's a jerk to them.
Got it.
So I really like that, the sort of the story of that, and I really like the narrative in games. So I feel like that is one of the major contributions that I've been able to throw in is
Sure.
that extra loaded decision of like if I'm mean to this person, there is a chance that they will come back and bite me. Like
Sure. Definitely like your Mass Effect, like make what is it the trial of choices,
right.
like what you say and do will come back, and it definitely is a gamble. um Anything else, like can we, I mean as far as it is in development, are we still early on? Is there room, is there like bubbling a time for whether this is going to be Kickstarter or retail release? Can you say anything to that at all?
All of the teaser images have said that it's coming to Kickstarter in 2019.
Okay.
As far as actual dates, I'm not sure. We are like running it through. Like we sort of we're doing this nice like hot potato thing
Mm-hmm.
where the Eisners will rock on it for a bit if we get stuck on something, and then they'll toss it over to us. We'll rock on it, and then
Yeah.
once we get it to a good spot, we both start playtesting it and then start like combining our feedback together.
Yeah.
Um, so it's really just sort of like we're passing it back and forth to solve these different problems, and it's really been like the game is 1,000 times better for the process that we've had of just be like, hey, why don't you guys try this? We've been having issues with it. And be like, hey, this didn't work for us, but this did, and so we'll try it. And so like
Mm-hmm.
the what comes from that, like the in between of like having like two teams of two designers basically working on a project has been really interesting, and it's worked in the favor of the game, and hopefully for everyone who gets to play it.
So I was actually, that was going to be my last question, was having four developers on a game, like how does it work in terms of, like it seems like it's pretty harmonious in that, yeah, Eisner Brothers go ahead, they rock on it as you said, they get stuck on something, they pass it on to you, you and John take a look at it and be like, oh, let's try it this way, play, test, test, test,
Hmm.
develop, there you go, and it kind of goes back and forth. So that's awesome to hear, because it seems like there's definite possibility that like there's something that you guys really like, that the Eisner brothers come back and be like, well, this is not kind of how we thought this would work.
Right.
And it seems as though right now, as I said earlier, like it's seems as though all four of you are on sync. So that's
Hmm.
really great to hear.
Yeah, we have a very singular vision on what the game is going to end up being. Like
Mm-hmm.
the things that we want to see in a final. Like the John is very experienced first, so like it's not
Sure.
theme, it's not mechanics. It is what do we want the players to feel. And the four of us have like our very first video call was like going over what experience we want the players to have, and so that's kind of how we work. So as long as we know that, and we just have to make sure that all of our decisions are pointing us in that direction.
It's fantastic.